joining us. We're recording this meeting and we will post the video and other meeting materials to our project website. This is our June 10th, 2021 Site Advisory Group meeting, and tonight's marks the transition from monthly meetings to our quarterly or milestone meetings as we continue through the facility design. Go ahead and go. So on our agenda tonight, it kicks off with our project update as usual. We have a special guest tonight. We're joined by the Water Bureau Director, Gabe Solmer, who will speak briefly about our Good Neighbor Agreement. Then we have Casey Hagerman and Jeff McGraw from our architectural team sharing how the facility design has been refined. And we'll be saving time at the end of the meeting to discuss your ideas and input as a group. The next slide, please. As a quick reminder for those who may be new, you'll see the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen. And to help with the flow and the bandwidth of the meeting, please keep your mic muted and your camera off unless you're speaking. When you have ideas to share, please use the raise your hand tool, or you can type that into the chat. Now I'm going to turn it over to David for our project update.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Peters, the Program Director for the Bull Run Treatment Program. I appreciate you coming out on this beautiful evening. Can't believe it's June already, but the year's moving along, and we appreciate the time that you're sharing with us this evening. Just wanted to give an update on various activities that we've had going on over the last few months, and some of the things that are coming up. So we will be doing our annual report to the Portland City Council on June 23rd. So our agreement with our City Council is that we will come to them and provide an update on the progress of our efforts. And this year that's happening on June 23rd. And I know that information and the date and time and all of that will be posted on our website. And those City Council meetings are public meetings. If you like to participate in those, that'll be available to do that. The final filtration facility, what we call our basis of design report, will be available at the end of June. And that's a document that's in the final reviews now, and will get posted to our website there around that time of the City Council report or the week after. And that basis of design report is actually the structure of what it is we're going to design and construct as we're going forward. So it has all the details about the processes and the systems that we'll be looking to incorporate into our facilities, much of which we've been sharing over the last several months. But that will be a final report form. We're doing a similar report for our pipelines work. And so that basis of design report for the pipelines is under development now. That one is a few months behind the facilities, so it'll be the fall before that comes out as a final document. But we're using all the work that we've done over the last several months, the geotechnical work that was done, the drillings that were done. We're taking all that information now and incorporating that into this pipelines basis of design report to inform what we're going to design for pipelines. And we've talked about having our designer and contractor for the filtration facility. We have a designer for the pipelines. The last piece that we're working to fill is hiring the contractor that will build the pipelines. And so we are currently reviewing proposals from 3 firms, and we'll be making a selection later this summer from those 3 firms. So we're in the process of filling out the rest of our team for our work here. We've talked over the last few months about the construction that's going on at our Lusted Hill facility to improve our corrosion control facilities. And that's been under construction for six months or so. And that's continuing. And so the last month, you may have seen the delivery of these large silos that you see in the photo here getting set on the site that had the roads filled as those were being delivered. And we don't have anything else that's that large that's coming forward, but we will have additional equipment deliveries that that will be moving slowly through the neighborhoods as they're getting delivered to our sites. And finally, also for the corrosion control facilities, there's some work that needs to get done as we tie into our conduits or at the bottom of the hill below Lusted Road. These Lusted Hill facilities are on top of the hill. They're at the corner of Lusted and Cottrell, and we need to get a new water line in between the two. And so they're looking at options of how that line will feed underneath Lusted Road out in that area. So that may come with some traffic restrictions as they're working out and working through the construction of that pipeline under the road there. But those are some of the bigger things that we have going on right now as far as an overview for our project. And so I'll jump to the next slide. And at this point, last month, my team was here, and our leadership team for the program in operations and design and construction all came and talked to you about the Good Neighbor Agreement and the details of that document, and provided their commitments to ensuring that we're going to meet what we put together in this Good Neighbor Agreement. And I know we've had some questions about how that gets enforced, and that's through our commitments to you going forward. But it's also not just our program leadership team, but we have been sharing this with our leadership team at the Water Bureau, and that's where Gabe Silver, our Water Bureau director, is joining us this evening to talk a little bit about that and sharing that with sharing the Water Bureau's commitment to meet the impacts of the Good Neighbor Agreement. So Gabe, maybe if you'd like to jump in and say a few words about that.
Sure, and I know that was a little bit choppy. Can you guys hear me okay? Oh.
Yes.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm the Portland Water Bureau Director. My name is Gabrielle Sulmer. I go by Gabe Sulmer as well. I've been with the Bureau for 6 years, and I've been in the director's position since August of last year. I'm really, really glad to be with you this evening to acknowledge the Neighbor Agreement. I know it has been a lot of work to get here. So I just really want to thank you for hanging in there and starting this early and being so committed. I want to assure you that we are also committed as a project team, as a bureau, as the city, with my city commissioner, Commissioner Maps, with this Good Neighbor Agreement. You've worked with the project team for months to get here, and I asked to be here tonight because this means a lot to me in terms of how it will guide our work, both in communications, in design, in construction, and in operations. And I have only been in the director's seat for less than a year, but we've operated facilities as the Water Bureau in this area for more than 100 years. And I think it is really important that we stay the course of continuing to build positive relationships, even as we build this new facility. So I guess I just want to share that I'm really thankful to this group for the time and the energy that you put into this process. And I want to just recognize all of the conversations that have helped to get to this milestone. And I have been a community organizer, I've been a community advocate, and I know sometimes it feels like you're just kind of yelling into the void and you're not sure if that information is getting across or how it will be used. And so I'm really proud of having a Good Neighbor Agreement. I think it really puts into practice all of the things that we want, that we're committing to and that we want to see in this project. You really came into this project early and spent 18 months. And so I think that is a really important commitment that you've made. And I know that it has helped us a lot. I know that we have made decisions and changes in the design process because directly from what we've heard from this group. So I'm really proud to sign the agreement. I take it very seriously. And I really value the perspective of this group, the site advisors, and the broader community. And I'll just say, maybe it sounds funny, but particularly when we don't agree, it's easy to find people who can agree with me. It's really, really valuable to have those different perspectives because we all come from different lived experiences. And I don't walk in your shoes, so I need you to be here to help me understand how you see something. Your insights, your suggestions, your concerns, criticisms, all of that has helped us move through design, and it'll help us in construction and in operation as well. I really want to encourage you as community members to stay involved, particularly as we transition into the design phase and we refine and optimize the decisions that have been made. Your feedback early on has helped shape the design. I want to make sure that continues to happen because I know that this is a big project and it means big changes for our customers and for our neighbors. And really at the heart of all of the details in the Good Neighbor Agreement, and there's a lot of good details. It's not just sort of mom and apple pie. It really has some specifics. I think that it really underscores our commitment as a bureau to this open communication, open lines of communication, and just hopefully you see our willingness to look for solutions, and we certainly appreciate your willingness to offer those solutions and that discussion. Just in terms of logistics, I know Bonita has posted the Good Neighbor Agreement information on our project website, and that's where you can see the link at the bottom of the slide. That is where you'll find the signed agreement. So I encourage you to visit and share that and reference the agreement as we move forward. I'm asking you to help us stay accountable, help me stay accountable to the commitments that we've made in the Good Neighbor Agreement, and just continue helping us identify opportunities for this project and where we'll go next. So maybe I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Gabe. And can folks hear me now?
So it's still a little choppy.
Yeah, that may be on my end then.
If you want to try it without the video, see if just audio works.
Let me give that a try. Okay. Can you still hear me? Is that better for folks?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound as choppy on my end. Okay. Well, Gabe, thank you so much for joining us. And I do want to say that we work with Gabe and our executive committee at the Water Bureau weekly to keep them involved and informed, and that is our commitment. We've shared this Good Neighbor Agreement with that group and are committed to continuing to work to meet the elements of this agreement. And I do want to reiterate that we've come a long ways together as a team over the last 18 months. We learned a lot getting getting out to see treatment plants and to see what some of these plants look like in other communities in our neighborhood. We weathered the pandemic and been able to continue to meet and talk and get your input as we've gone forward. And we just really appreciate you sticking with us and continuing to provide that input as we've gone along. And the range of issues, I think, has been extensive also. We've talked about stormwater and architecture and access and landscaping. And we just appreciate all the thoughts that have been put into that on your part. And so even as we are marking the end of, I guess, this agreement, we are committed to continuing to have interactions with you as we're going forward. You know, as we go through design, we do want to come back and talk with you frequently. And we're setting up a quarterly process to be able to do that, so that we can talk about how we're incorporating what's in this agreement into our design. And we'll start that tonight. We have Casey Hagerman with us to walk through where we're at now in terms of the design and talking about some of the elements that we've incorporated based on the input and feedback that we've had over the last several months. So Casey, do you want to take it away from here?
Sure. Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. Good to be here again with you to talk design. Hopefully you all can hear me and you're all doing well. I am going to present some updates to both the facilities and the site to you tonight and get some feedback from you to see if what we've heard from you is showing up in the design and if we're moving in the right direction based on the feedback we've gotten from you in earlier meetings. As a quick reminder, in the Good Neighbor Agreements, we do have some strategies that are guiding us towards a design that hopefully fits into the local surroundings and is as unobtrusive as possible. Things like having low profile buildings and natural looking materials. Maybe most importantly, trying to have an agrarian Pacific Northwest style and screen the site so that there's as little visible as possible and really reduce the impacts to the neighborhood. So next slide, what have we been up to since we last discussed design? Well, we are in the 30% design phase. That's the first of 4 design phases for this project, and it's moving really fast. We are refining the design based on a lot of value engineering, which helps us look at cost savings, and we are really working on the building spaces themselves, making sure we have the essential spaces accounted for, trying to locate everything on the site the best way we can. And the site layout itself has remained basically the same as the previous time we've presented, with some small tweaks being made now to make sure everything fits in and we don't expand it any further. And the architectural style is evolving to take your and other comments and critiques into account and try to improve things. And I want to talk about those changes tonight. So where did we come from? The last time we shared with you, we shared some images, some design guidelines we're working on for the look and feel of the non-process admin building that you see here, and as well as the process buildings, and some feedback we heard from you and the Bureau, and we heard a lot of overlapping feedback. Some of the same things came up, really rethinking the look and feel of this building. So take it more towards the agrarian rural nature of the site instead of the big glassy boxes that are maybe better in a suburban neighborhood. We're trying to find ways to shrink the building, reduce the overall square footage, save money there, and really thinking more about the weather of the site and protecting the entry in the building in that way. And we're also looking for ways to integrate warm materials like wood into the buildings where appropriate, so we can really leverage our local resources. So based on some of the public survey responses we got, we weren't quite hitting the mark for most of our goals that are listed on the left here. Most people thought we were like halfway there. And so we thought about this critically, and we literally went back to the drawing board for some of these buildings. And the revisions that we really looked at were based on these critiques and trying to make the buildings only the essential spaces we need, really look critically at any kind of public function and things like public lobbies and what's the best way we can serve that need without devoting a lot of expensive space to that. We did reduce the overall square footage. I want to show you how we did things like move the lobby to basically a covered outdoor space that the operators and staff would use most of the time. And we've introduced a more agrarian style gable roof form that at a distance would really make this facility fit in better with most of the other types of buildings you see around the area. We're trying to reduce the areas of large glass and really look more at smaller windows and openings in these buildings to kind of bring down that scale. We are also integrating more landscape around the buildings, not just around the edges of the site, to kind of help also bring down the overall mass of the building and to really try to capture and manage the stormwater as close to the sources of things like roofs as possible. Next. So we'll discuss the site perimeter in more detail in a few minutes, but this view from the ground level at Carpenter Lane shows the main perimeter gate that is just off the road. And this is sort of the first level of the security fencing and the gates for the facility. And this shows how the landscaping is really helping screen the views as much as possible as you get up to the main gate. So this is, yeah, you can go ahead and move to the next one. That's okay. So if you were to come to this facility, you would have to first pass through that main gate. And then as you get closer to the admin, you can see on the left of this image is another gate, and that's the real facility security gate for anybody who's coming to make deliveries would have to pass through that gate as well. So this admin facility, we've tried to break the massing up a little bit more. And so we have a combination of a lower one-story structure that you see kind of in the middle of the screen. That's what we're calling the porch. It's sort of an open air entry area. Instead of a lobby, we've basically moved that function outside. And behind that is the main admin building. It is a two-story structure. And we're trying to reduce some of the windows, but also bring in light through a dormer in the roof and try to find some good ways to utilize the natural light of the site. Next up looking at this building from okay, I'll pause there. Sarah, you have a comment?
The front of the building, as you're showing it to us now, Aubrey, is that facing directly north now?
That is somewhat off axis. That's about 30 degrees off of north, I think.
Okay, so we wouldn't have that much reflection from winter suns reflecting off of the windows. In other words, where you've placed the building right now on the campus is almost in line with Mount Hood. So the idea would be to make sure a setting sun did not end up making those upper story windows a beacon, similar to a lighthouse,
Right.
or
Big
else
reflection.
taking those windows and making sure that the finish on those windows was not a reflective one.
Thank you for
Does
that.
that make sense?
Yes, it totally does. And we are thinking about that, and we are going to be looking at the right kind of shading devices that will help in both directions. And we'll do some modeling to make sure we get that tuned up as much as possible. Thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you.
So as you approach this building, we do want to help reduce its mass because it is a 2-story building. It's not super short, but we have a max height of 35 feet, as we've talked about before. We are introducing this lower volume and this landscaping to help also bring down a little bit of that massing. And we're still want to utilize warm materials to help this and our other facilities blend into the site. The darker colors at a distance help make these buildings disappear a little bit. And so we have some dark earth tone siding above and some more of a durable base look to these buildings. So this would be like a concrete or stone base. And we're still playing with those materials, trying to figure out what works best. The backside of this building, if you were on the, yeah, here's a little bit more close-up look. As you get closer to the entry, you kind of get funneled into either the porch or you can pass through into the main entry. And where we have these larger expanses of glass, there is a stairwell and a conference room behind those. And the other rooms are offices. So we're still working on the outside of the building design, but this is kind of the direction we're heading for the front entry. If you were on the secure side of the plant, like if you were on a tour or if you worked here, these are some other areas where we have the main control room is on the upper story there on that corner where you see other large expanses of glass. This is so the operators and controllers can get a good view of the filters and the rest of the process building. And we have our little locker room building on the right-hand side. You'll notice in the background there, we have a communications tower showing. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the site, but we are kind of trying to find the right spot for that. It keeps creeping a little bit closer to our buildings, a little bit further east up against the tree line, and we're still working out the details of exactly where that's going to live and what the design of that tower will actually be. But I'll talk some more about that a little bit later. For the process buildings, we showed some of these last time, and they are the last thing we're getting to designing right now as we wait for the engineers to finish their work. But we are still looking at integrating a mix of roof types, both gable type and shed type roofs. And we're really trying to react to what is inside these buildings. Some of these buildings have big tanks in them. Some of them have overhead conveyor belts like the one on the left. And so we do have to deal with some height limitations and try to make these buildings work for all the machinery inside. But we also are going to integrate some dark materials to help these blend in and try to put the windows in the right spots so we can get some daylight into these rooms. I'd like to pause here and get any other general thoughts about the design direction we're going. And here, if you think we've responded well to the comments we've gotten previously, and are we moving in the right direction? Do you think this is more of the look and feel that will better fit into the local context?
I see Jane has her hand up again. Jane, did you have a comment or question? You're still on mute if you are talking.
Trying to get it off of the
Now we hear you.
unmute. Sorry about that, Casey. Aubrey's showing us again with the windows, and I like the darker uppers and the concrete lowers. Are we looking at concrete blocks, solid concrete slabs, or are you looking at perhaps incorporating, especially to those facilities that are going to be visible to visitors and the outer perimeters of the facility? Are you thinking of stamping or coloration or some other form of changing it, for lack of any other word, to prettify it, as far as making it look like it might be stone or something of another nature? Yes, I realize that adds to the cost.
Mm-hmm.
But, and again, any of the windows, the more north-facing windows, the better off because of sun reflection and the heat issues, especially for southern-facing windows and
Right.
eastern or particularly western facing windows.
I think we should hire you as a designer. You have such good knowledge, it sounds like, but we are cognizant of the glazing area. I think there'll be less glazing area on those process buildings. And for the base question you had, we for the process buildings, it's likely to be cast in place concrete or CMU, and with like a metal panel siding above it, or a fiber cement siding, something durable and fire resistant. For the admin building, like you see on the screen now, this is sort of the most public facing. If there was anywhere we would want to dress it up, it would probably be here. And we actually just had a call today. The design team was kicking around what ideas, and we've got a whole list of things we're looking at. Everything from like a board form concrete or something with a form liner to give it a texture, to a stone veneer, even maybe basalt, something local, and all the way to just a sort of precast concrete piece that isn't very thick, so that we can do our insulation and get our energy savings behind that, and just have like a veneer that gives it that durable stone finish. So I appreciate us wanting to, make it look good, and that's our goal too. We want to find an economical way to do that. Some products are better at that than others, and so we just want to kind of give it that nice durable base. I see Jeff might have something to add.
I just want, this is Jeff McGraw. Sorry. Anything concrete has color choices as well, color additives, and I think what is being asked is, can we tone it down so it doesn't shimmer, so it's not a bright surface reflecting back on the neighbors. I think, and we have that palette. We have those materials available to us as well if we're going with something like a concrete or a precast concrete product. That's it, Casey.
Okay, so I see Mr. Knapp has a question too.
Oh yeah. Oh, good. You went back to the last slide. I noticed in this slide here that the chemicals building looks rather large. Is that because there are just so many different chemicals involved?
Yeah, there are probably at least a dozen different tanks inside, and some are rather tall, and operators need access to the top of those tanks. And so this building, like the admin building, is likely going to be maxed out in terms of our height limitation, the 35 feet height limitation. And this building and some of the exterior tanks, which you see just poking out at the backside there, on honestly will be some of the more visible structures from afar, depending on your view angle and all that.
Gotcha. Is the 35 feet the code requirement, or is
Yes,
that a
sir.
self-imposed limit?
That is a code requirement.
Okay. So there's no way of putting this stuff underground? I mean, it's physically impossible?
These buildings themselves, not so much. There are some, actually inside, there are some depressions where some of the tanks sit, but it's not something we can, they typically go underground with.
Well, yeah, but I mean, aside from being typical, I'm just saying, is it absolutely impossible to put these sort of things underground?
I think it would be impossible based on our cost constraints at this point. But I mean, in terms of engineering wise, I mean, nothing's impossible ultimately, but I think cost prohibitive.
Well,
Yeah, I
these-
would agree. Engineering wise, it does seem like most things are possible.
Yeah, nowadays.
Yeah.
Oh, I think, Jeff, you're talking, but you're muted.
I'm sorry. We have a 35-foot height
Nope,
limit.
I had finished my question.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, the other Jeff.
Just one quick thing here. If we did not have a height limit on this site, this building would be more affordable, and the tanks, essentially, the building would be taller. We are, in fact, trying to fit in, some larger tanks in depressed areas, as Casey mentioned here, and that, as opposed to putting everything slab on grade. So the 35-foot limit is challenging enough at this point, and I don't know if that answers your question, but it's having some cost impacts to essentially just fit everything in this building.
Oh, I don't doubt it has cost impacts, but like most things, I mean, you guys said, you were trying to make this as unobtrusive as possible. And, what I see in this design is it simply complies with code. It's not an aggressive approach to trying to minimize the overall impact. That's just my observation.
Understood. I respect that for sure. There is a lot I'll show you in a second that we're doing on the edges of the site to mitigate some of these taller buildings we're not able to shrink right now.
See, Jane has her hand raised again.
I'm thinking of the chemicals being stored in that building, and one of the reasons why placing them in the ground might be difficult is that for most people listening to tonight's broadcast, if you have a water tank sitting out in your garage, the way you empty it is usually from the bottom. And that makes it difficult if the bottom of a tank is buried into concrete and you have to rely on then piping through the floor in order to drain a tank in the event that you would have some issue, whether it's a dangerous issue or just cleaning out the tank and replacing it with something else because some of the chemicals you bought were not pure. So I can see why setting it on top of a concrete base would be faster for maintenance purposes.
And just to piggyback on that observation, there's lifespans to these tanks where the facility will have to replace them, add new ones, and that adds to its own logistical challenges if they're buried or deep underground. But we are trying to work with the engineers as the architects to bring down this height as much as possible. I've seen some layouts where we can, knock 5 feet off the top of this building. And so we're going to try to do stuff like that. That's where we come and represent your views in the design process to bring this back to them and see what else we can do to push the design. So I appreciate your comments.
So I see you have quite a few more slides left, so let's move along on this one.
Okay. Sounds good. That's just a little overview slide. I'd like to turn now to actually the greater site layout on the next slide, if you would. So, like I said before, not a whole lot has changed. The last time we talked to you, we showed you sort of the layout on the left. The layout on the right is where we stand right now. We were just talking about the admin building that's circled in white. The big chemical building you saw is kind of smack dab in the middle, the big brown roof there. We are still working to keep everything hemmed in on that western portion of the site. And our main access point is still planning on coming from the north across Carpenter Lane. The south access road you see that's kind of looping down and heading towards Bluff Road is right now planned to be used for construction access and for emergencies, so not the primary access point. The details that I can give you aren't much. It's still under development, and figuring out the access is taking us longer than we thought, taking the team longer than we thought. It's turning out to be quite a complex topography, safety requirements, working with the county, and all the geotechnical concerns we have with the site. And we've told the design team this is a very hot topic and a major concern for the neighbors and the site advisors, and they are on task. There is a sort of a small team that's working with the planners in the county and really trying to dig into this, but it's proving to be challenging, and it's taking us a little longer. So we don't have any major updates to report out this time, but we do think that by the September meeting, we should be able to give you some more details about how that design is sussing out. I'm looking at the chat right now. The trucking traffic, we've had some stats that we've given about truck traffic. There is some construction truck counts that the contractor is now estimating, you know, excavation and how many trips are going to have to be made. Construction is going to see the most traffic. During operations, there's going to be, you know, scheduled deliveries, scheduled tours, the operators coming and going morning and evening. So not that much there. I don't have those numbers in front of me. Someone else could probably provide those for you via email. I'm reading from Dean and Pat on the east side. We are concerned, you know, we know a road may come right by your house, and the team is actively looking at options for that, working with the other neighbors who have the property around you and seeing how that can get, how we can optimize that for everyone.
Hey, Casey, I'm going to just read some of these too, because I know some of the people that are going to be watching this video later won't be able to see the chat.
Very good.
Just to recap what Casey was answering there, our neighbors to the east are wondering about the access road to the east and on the property side, but they know that more information is coming about access roads, and that's true. We are, I think, I'm going to have more information about that as we move along. Charles says, or asked the question, is there a time for open comment on the overall project, or is this just a design review? Sorry, I logged in late. And yes, this is really just a design review. And so we want to focus on any questions or comments about the information that's being presented tonight. Pat has a question about how many tours, and that has not been decided at this point. And Patricia asks, is most of the traffic coming off of Bluff Road? Is this the road that comes down from the towers? Not really sure. David, do you want to answer that question?
Well, part of that question gets addressed as we figure out the primary accesses that Casey was just describing. So there's still work to be done in terms of where most of the construction traffic will come from or go to. And so that will be worked out. We had our contractor in a couple months ago, so they're just coming up to speed and will be able to help us answer and address those questions in more detail as we're going forward. My understanding of the access to the Pleasant Home water tanks is that they just do use the farm roads, either on our property or the property to the south to get to their tanks. There is no dedicated access to that. So the property or the access that we're looking at down the east side we have been looking at coordinating with some of those existing farm road areas and staying consistent with some of the travel lanes that are already out there in terms of our early thinking on that. So hope that helps a little bit.
Oops, so that's answering the question that Jane had as well about why not use the access road for the 2 Pleasant Home water tanks. Pat has asking about an estimate on the tours, 1 day, 1 a day, 5 a day, 20. What we can tell you is that we're not doing 20 a day, but I think 5 a day is still not an estimate. That's still a fairly high estimate for what we have. What might happen, but we do even 1 a day I think would probably be high. Do you have an estimate, Dave, on what we currently have?
That's what I was trying to think through. I want to say that typically when we talk about tours, it's mostly school-age children that get taken out to our watershed, and there's still a lot to be worked out in terms of what tours and we'll still go up to the watershed and what tours might stop here. But it's typical. Our busy season is working with the school children. And I think that's typically in the spring and early summer. And then through the summer, there's some weekend tours when they will take adults out into the watershed and whatnot. And I think we're thinking that this might be a stop on some of those tours. I believe, and we'll work to bring in more information about what we do today. But I don't believe it's more than 1 a day. I think, I want to say it's about 3 times a week that they bring school classes up to our facilities and do some science projects with them and give them tours of our facilities and things. So that's more, I believe, more kind of the frequency that we currently do now up in the watershed, and I would assume that we'd be thinking kind of along the same lines for thinking about the future and at this facility also. But we will have to get some more information on that for you about what we do today, and maybe we can give you some feedback on how that might translate into future trips.
Yeah, and Jane has noted on our website, 80 per year between spring and fall. So that's less than 1 per day right now. Casey, let's keep this rolling. I know you go.
So I just want to point out again a little bit of discussion about the communications tower. Last year, way back when, the first time we presented this, that tower was just sort of east of the water tanks up at the top of the hill. We moved it down off the hill a little to the north, and we've moved it a little further north now again. We're trying to, like I said, get the information about where the best place this is so that the communications work between the admin building and Bull Run and some other sites that the communications have to reach. And we're trying to, mask that tower best we can with the tower design as well as with the tree line behind it. And that is going to be a tall structure, no doubt. And we're going to do our best to kind of use the sight lines and the tree line to help make that go away as best we can. Quickly, I just wanted to revamp our strategy for the overall stormwater. That's a big deal for this site. It's a very impervious site as it stands. There's drain tile and lots of runoff, and we hope to actually try to improve that condition through all the vegetation and berming that we are introducing into the site. And we're committed to going beyond code and treating the 25-year storm instead of just the 10-year storm. We do predict that with climate change, things are going to get rainier, have bigger events. We want to be able to handle that, be able to capture the water on site, manage it, slowly meter it out to Johnson Creek, to the property owner to the west where that water flows now, and help improve the eastern drainage onto that neighbor's site. So hopefully we'll help with some flooding mitigation as well as just trying to manage this stormwater better. We're pretty excited about integrating stormwater into our designs.
There's
So
a question,
oh.
Casey, about how tall the communications tower is. And I believe it won't be any taller than 200 feet. Is that right?
I think that is the max height. It all depends on the angles of where they need to get lines of sight to and the tree line. And so we're trying to balance that act right now. So it will be the tallest thing, maybe taller than the water towers, honestly.
It will be under 200 feet. And the need will be, as Casey pointed out, the sight lines up into our watershed, and we'll just need to be, need to be a little bit taller than the trees that line the east side of that property. And so that the final height hasn't been determined yet, and there's still some studies that are planned to get that figured out.
So the last thing I want to show everyone today is some views out of our model that show what it looks like from the perimeter looking into the plant. These views are rather elevated, like you're off the ground 3 or 4 stories. So if you were in a 1 or 2 story building, you're seeing more than you would from your house. And what we wanted to do is try to truth out what our vegetation is going to be doing. So we're going to show you some views with about 5 years of vegetation growth versus 15 years of vegetation growth. So we can kind of judge, how much is going to be seen in the early part right after construction versus a little later down in time. So we hope this gives you a good idea of that. This view is from Carpenter Lane looking south, sorry. The main gate is right in front of you. You see our facilities in the background. To the right, you can see our very stepped looking fake landscape berming. This is going to be one of our major strategies to not only help screen the views into the facility from the majority of neighbors, but also to help manage the stormwater on site. And these berms will also help capture and dampen noise that is approaching the property line. We do have commitments about the noise on the property line. And so this is the view at 5 years. And the next slide kind of shows maybe around 15 years, give or take. Our trees are growing up a lot more. If you were down at street level, about this time frame is when facilities will really start disappearing from view. The next slide is looking east towards a very fake looking Mount Hood, but that is actually how high Mount Hood is and how far away it is. But this is also elevated. And so our main berm is right in front of you, but this is the 5-year growth. And then after about another 10 years, those evergreen and deciduous trees will get nice and tall. And when you're at ground level, folks at their houses west of the site should, you know, see our trees and our berm, the tree line behind it, and then the Mount Hood view beyond. Next up is our friends to the east. This is down in that southeast corner where the slope is coming down towards your house. We are going to put stormwater treatment areas right here. There may be that road passing through. We've planted some trees up on the other side of the hill and sort of closer to the property line. And this is sort of the 5-year scenario. And a little further down the road, those trees would pop up a little bit and hopefully practically obscure the plant altogether from you. That's what that looks like. And then the furthest view is looking north from Bluff Road. There's a lot of topography here. It dips down, goes back up to our site, and then most of our site is kind of tucked over that hill. And we are still going to be doing some berming and some vegetation on this south side so that things will grow up. And at 5 years, it doesn't look like much. At 15 years, it still doesn't look like much, but the vegetation is actually doing a whole lot to screen the facilities from Bluff Road. Our hope and dream, of course, is that people passing by on Bluff Road might catch a glimpse, and it just looks and feels like another farm complex, essentially, and nothing to really call it out as something different. That's really what we're shooting for here. So that is my update. I would like to open it up to some more comments for folks, either about the architecture or the site in the few minutes we have left. And then we can close out.
And looks like Charles has a comment, question.
Hi, Charles. Can't hear you. You're muted if you're trying to talk. Sorry.
And turn my video on if I can.
Yeah, if you'd like.
Host to stop the video. Well, hi, this is Charles Watt, and I live over on Lusted Road north of the facility. Currently, the pipelines under Lusted run underneath the front of my property and on Lusted Road itself. So I'm essentially a neighbor to the proposed pipelines that'll be going across the property to our south through the tree farms. And I was hoping I could have a little video here, allowance just for a moment, because I happen to be at the combined Cottrell CPO and Pleasant Home Community Association meeting. And I do have my webcam set up, and I just thought you might want to see the roughly 75 people who are gathered here tonight and hear a little word from Mike Dawson, who will tell you about our position on the overall project, and not just the look and feel, which is kind of overwhelming in a rural area, but also the overall impacts. Could I be allowed to use my video?
Well, Charles, our meeting is until 7 o'clock, and I don't want to hold people up from the questions that might want to address some of the things that Casey has talked about this evening.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure that we get those covered first. Does anybody have questions or comments about the facility? Mr. Knapp, you have your hand raised.
I think we should see what Charles has to say. Yeah, I think Charles should turn his camera on.
There are opportunities to give that sort of feedback. That's not this time. Our purpose of this meeting is to talk about the design and the facility. So
well, this is about the good neighbor agreement, right? Or is it now a good neighbor commitment? Is the fact you guys are now calling it a commitment because you can't get agreement?
no, it is our commitment to our neighbors that we've made.
Will you be reporting to the city council on June 23rd that the
We
vast
will
majority
be.
of the local public
Yes, we
objects?
will be, and that would be a great opportunity for you to have that sort of, any sort of comments about the project that aren't related to the design.
Seems like it's highly related to the design.
I respect your opinion about that, but this is a time for us to talk about, we understand that people aren't happy about the project, but our purpose of this project is to fulfill the commitment that we've made to build this project.
Okay. Well, back to the chemicals building then. I got a question for you.
So very, very briefly before you end, just real quick, I just want everybody here to say hi. Hello. Hello. And just want to let you know we exist. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Knapp, you had a question about the,
Yeah, about the chemicals building. And I was just thinking maybe could the chemicals building be made smaller if the only chemicals that were involved were the chemicals we're using today? Or does the filtration plant not work unless you add these new chemicals?
Dave, do you want to take that question?
Well, we need to do more than we are doing today, and that's why we're building the filtration facility. And the chemicals are required as part of the filtration process to make the different processes that work. And there's multiple processes in this facility. You know, there's the filtration processes, and then the dealing with the material we take out of the water. All of those are things that come into play. So the chemicals are related to those various processes. So there are more chemicals than we are using today. And
So
that is part of the filtration process.
So the filtration process doesn't work without these new chemicals, is that right?
Yes, the chemicals are required for the filtration process.
Right. And these are new chemicals that you're not currently using.
There are some.
Mr. Knapp, this is a conversation about the design of the facility. I think these are questions that we've answered before in a number of occasions, and I understand where you're trying to get to here, and
well, I'm trying to minimize the size of that building.
And we'll take a look at how we can possibly keep the size minimized. And I think our team has done a great job of trying to do that as we've moved through this process. And I appreciate all of the input that we received on keeping that design in line to what we can do for making it fit into the current situation. Are there any other questions about the facility or the design process that Casey has talked about today?
Just one last question. When will the agreement be signed?
Dave and Gabe have signed it today, and it will be posted onto our website. The content is already onto our website, so you can check out the content there. It's all content that we've presented before through our surveys and received feedback on that.
When will the community sign it?
There's no expectation for the community to sign this agreement. This is a commitment that the city is making for neighbors.
Well, is there an opportunity?
No, we're not having the opportunity there's no, if you would like to sign a document, then, that's you, but
Well, it just
we're not
seems like
asking any
it
neighbors to
seems like
sign.
most agreements involve people, coming together to, sign or not sign the agreement. Just it did say agreement, so I was just wondering when that agreement signing was going to be.
No, well, we haven't asked anybody to sign this agreement, so we're not asking anybody to sign this agreement because these are all commitments that we, as a project team, as the Water Bureau, are making toward for the neighbors.
That's a strange agreement.
All right. Any other comments? Questions? All righty. Well, we are planning another information session in September, and we anticipate having more information about the pipelines. And we heard from a number of people that you'd like to meet in person, so we'll continue to follow our city guidance. But if we are able to meet in September in person, we will. So, Dave or Gabe, did you have any final words?
Well, I did just
Go ahead,
want to
Dave.
take a minute. I did just want to take a minute and say thank you. I think I'm hoping by what you heard from Casey this evening that we have been listening. We've been meeting together for an extended period of time now, and we have been listening. And we heard the comments tonight about needing smaller buildings, and we will be taking that to heart as we go into our design. So we do appreciate all the feedback and your time and effort that has gone into this process. I'm sorry if I cut you off, Gabe. You might have a comment or two.
No, again, I just wanted to echo the project team's commitment all the way from the people that you've been working with over the last 18 months up to me and to our leadership team. And the commitments that we make in the Good Neighbor Agreement are important to us. They are informed by all of the work that the site advisory team has been doing over this time. So I'm proud of those commitments, and I do hope for that accountability from this group to those commitments. Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Thank you.
Good night.